Certainly after the nomadic years, the donation of the East Chattanooga property on which we sit and stand was a start in the right direction. Even early artist renderings of the area showed a simple, single-track shop. But for many years, the simple pole shed around the corner would have to suffice. I can remember my first visit to TVRM 30 years ago this past Labor Day, and being told of the wondrous work that was going on under that shed. I was hooked, and look where I am now. Through numerous cold Saturday mornings and hot afternoons, not to mention some snow and rain, our volunteers worked on a variety of projects, but more would be needed. In the early 80s, TVRM arranged to raise funding for 3 capital projects through the sale of an industrial development bond. Those 3 projects, the Grand Junction Depot, the East Chattanooga Turntable, and this shop, continue to serve as the backbone of TVRM. Somewhat Spartan when built, nevertheless it had inspection pits, storage, a machine shop, and a roof over our heads. Over the years, a crane was added. Somehow I convinced Bob to go in with me and purchase a wheel lathe when TVRM couldn't. Eventually Bob located needed wheelworking equipment from, of all places, Poland. From these doors have rolled rebuilt equipment such as Coaches 1000, 1688, 906, and our latest, the 1037. Steam locomotives 610 and 4501 enjoyed a rebirth inside these walls. And diesels 1824, 1829, and 710 have all seen renewed life, also from inside this hall. Although as president, Bob often had to deal with many other details, from toilets to invoices and bagels to boxcars, imparting the knowledge from his years of experience came easiest when standing in this building surrounded by our mechanical team. Today, the shop is largely empty of both equipment and people. Most of our active volunteers are out operating trains. As we speak, they're stretched over 150 miles from Somerville, Georgia on the C&C to Farner, Tennessee on the Hiawassee River Gorge. Who could have known in 1961? Only a man with vision and the conviction and drive to see that vision become a reality. That man was Robert M. Sewell, and today we gather to dedicate this shop facility in his honor and memory. We have a number of people who've known Bob for a long time and watched the work we've done here, who are here to share their thoughts on this moment. And we're going to start out with TVRM member and Hamilton County Commissioner Curtis Adams.
The only people you'd see here in a black suit like this today would be a politician or an undertaker. Maybe a preacher. You know, we have to do so many things when we're in political office, so many things we don't like to do. But today I'm going at 3 o'clock to be part of the 100th anniversary of the First Nazarene Church. And then today I was so honored to have an opportunity to come here and speak on behalf of the county and our appreciation for Robert Soule. I met him almost 20 years ago when I first went in office, and he come down before the Tourist Development Agency asking for money. We gave him a little, but not enough. And he's a great person, a great personality. If he was on a football team, he'd be an All-American. He was also a great American, a hard worker. He'd have made a good politician because he worked hard and he was determined. He'd have been an honest politician, Arnold. You know, when you think about people like him, what he's meant to you and us and me. The year before last, we had the Thomas train come into Chattanooga, and I've got a little 4-year-old grandson. He was 3 at the time, and my little daughter flew around and didn't have tickets, and I called him. No question about it. He said, just tell them when they go to the ticket office that they're holding tickets for you, your son, the grandson, and his mother and daddy. And he got to ride the train. I am probably, if you kept record, I'm probably the highest number of visits to the railroad because he loves to come over here. In fact, we was over here yesterday. Just me and him, not a soul around, but me and him. We parked, the gate was closed, we parked up around the hill, walked through. And at first, every time he comes, it's like the first time. He loves the railroad. We've got every kind of video, steam engines. He loves steam engines. He said, I don't like diesels. He's 4 years old. He said, I don't like diesels. But we got every video that we can think of. And you know, just think about, I never dreamed when I first met Robert what this plot would mean to me personally. Well, you got a little, by the way, I've got 10 grandchildren. I'm not an amateur, but this little boy is a highlight of my life, and he loves railroads. He likes to sit and watch steam engines on television. He's crazy about Thomas the Train. He's got all those. And you think about what people like Robert have meant to us in this community. I told somebody a while ago before we started, this is a hidden secret out here. We just don't give it enough publicity. The newspapers and the television people don't give it enough publicity. But I hope they do better in the future. But when you think about Robert and what he's meant to this community, I've had the misfortune to write obituaries for my mother, my daddy, 2 of my brothers, and 2 of my sons. And I always wonder when you go to a funeral or go back to the cemetery after they put the tombstone up, here's the man's name, and here's the day he was born, and here's the day he died, and that little inch in the middle, that little dash in the middle. And wouldn't it be wonderful if you just push a button and see all of the life of Bob Soule, instead of standing there and looking and say, wasn't he a great person? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could say that at the grave by just pushing a button? We can't do that, but we can say to you, and all of you are here today, you must have loved him or you wouldn't be here. You must have had a lot of respect for him, as I did. It's a great honor to be here today. I appreciate being invited, and I can't tell you, Robert Soule III, how much I appreciate you asking me to be here today. And on behalf of the county, and I hope that we can do more in the future in his honor, we want to do all we can to make this more successful. Who would have ever dreamed? Who would have ever dreamed of what would have happened? And since I've been watching videos, there's railroads like this, not as big as this, and not as good as this, all over the country. I never dreamed that there's so much interest in railroads. But since we've bought all the videos, I mean, all over America, you see something similar to this, and not as big. But here, someone in Chattanooga, Tennessee, had the vision, and all the 78,000 people. And I've been on the parking lot when you have trouble finding a parking place. Without his vision, we would not have that. We appreciate people like him, and we honor him today. And thank you so much, Robert, for allowing me to be here. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have an early TVRM member and former state representative, Arnold Stultz.
Thank you. And certainly it is a privilege for me to come here today and be a part of this ceremony celebrating the naming of these shops for Bob Soule. My wife told me before I left home, said, you be sure that you don't talk too much about yourself. But I got to tell you a little bit about myself now. I grew up about 120 yards from the main line of the Southern Railroad between Chattanooga and Cincinnati. To me, as a kid, steam engines were everything. I dearly loved to see them, and still do to this day. So it was no problem for me. I was working at DuPont and was well acquainted with Paul Merriman in 1964 when he came to the credit union to get $5,000 to buy this 4501. And it was not a bit of a problem for me then to become a part of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. And I certainly am indebted to Bob and what he has done. It wasn't very long after the acquisition of this locomotive that I was privileged to meet Bob Soule. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that I have had dreams in my lifetime. Most of us have. The problem with most of us is that our dreams are just that. We don't have the drive, the intelligence, and the vision to stay after those dreams and make them become reality. Bob Sewell had dreams, but brother, he would work. He was smart, and he would do whatever it took to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. He was a man of few words. Idle chatter was not a part of him. It was strictly business, and yet in all his dealings, he was a gentleman. I shall forever be grateful to him for what he has accomplished here. And Curtis, I will tell you that I think you and the county and the city fathers here need to support this museum more than they have done in the past. I ran across a poem that was written back in 1934, and yes, I'm much older than that. But it's one that I feel is appropriate to read to you. If I was smart enough, I'd quote it, but I'm afraid to try to do that. So I'm going to read it to you, and I think you'll get the message. And it's The Bridge Builder. An old man going a lone highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting strength with building here. Your journey will end with the end of the day. You never again must pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you a bridge at the eventide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. Bob Sewell built an institution for future generations to enjoy something that meant so much to some of us that would have been gone and never seen by so many that pass this way. Thank you for the privilege of being here today.
Over many years, we've had many members and many friends who have come to Chattanooga and for various reasons have moved away. We wanted to get some remarks from one of the other charter members and one of the first vice president of TVRM, Mr. James Lockhart. Unfortunately, he could not be with us today. He was kind enough to provide some remarks that Robert M. has put onto the video, and I don't think the glare is too bad. You may not be able to see Jim, but certainly you'll hear his words and what he has to offer to us today. We'll let our video technician go to work here.